Hello everybody, and welcome back on Agentforce codeLive. It's been some time I haven't chatted with all of you, and I'm excited to be back. Today, I will be talking about the Agent API and how it lets you build headless agent experiences. My name is Philippe Ozil. I'm a developer advocate at Salesforce, and I've recently celebrated my 9 years with the company, so that's been quite a long time. And what brings us today is more Agentforce content. So this is actually derived from one of my past talks. I've presented this at TDX San Francisco earlier this year, and also at TDX India and Bengaluru. Now, today won't be exactly a copy of my talk. If you want to look at the talk, it's been recorded. It's available on Salesforce Plus and on our YouTube channel. But today I want to really focus on, I think, is the most, perhaps the most impactful for developers. That's the actual developer experience side of the Agent API. So I'll be focusing on some demos. And I obviously recommend that you do watch the presentation because it covers more of the architectural principles behind this. So, long story short, what is the Agent API? Well, in a nutshell, that's another way to connect with our agents. And there are actually two ways to interact with agents with APIs. You can either use the brand new Agent API, or you can use something that is a bit older, but is called the Meow or Messaging for In-App API. And I'm saying it's a bit older because this Meow API predates Agentforce, so it existed before. Meow is designed to interact with service reps, actually humans, and can now also work with service agents as well. So I won't be talking about the Meow API in this session, but know that it is also an alternative to the use of the Agent API. So how do you build headless agents? And actually, what's the purpose of building headless agent experiences? Well, that's anytime you need to interact with Agentforce outside of the Salesforce platform. You can do this obviously with a chat interface, pretty much as if you were building within Experience Cloud or a custom website. But you can also do this with third-party integrations that do not even have a screen. So you can think of scenarios where you could be handling, for example, incoming emails, or you could be handling operations in the backend of a server, like triggered scheduled operations. So that's the kind of things that the Agent API is well tailored for. It doesn't need to have a user interface. For today's demo, I'll be showing some examples with a user interface, but know that it's not the only way to use it. So let's jump in. I'm mentioning this API, and let's take a look about how it works. I'm first going to start to show you the API itself. In Postman, we'll be using Postman because some of you probably know that it's kind of my favorite tool when dealing with APIs. And then I'll show you a practical example of a third-party integration. All right, so let's go. Let me share my screen now, and we're going to take a look at Postman. So for those of you who don't know about Postman yet, Postman is an API platform. It does a lot of things related to APIs, and one of the cool things it does is that it actually acts as an API client. And we have set up a workspace called the Salesforce Developers Workspace. This is kind of a landing page, and in this space here, we've been collaborating for the last, well, I should say almost 6 years, collaborating with different Salesforce teams to bring different APIs for different Salesforce clouds together in this space, the Salesforce Developers Workspace. So here you'll find Platform API, you'll find APIs for other clouds such as MuleSoft, Commerce Cloud, Data Cloud, Marketing Cloud, and even Tableau. We're still working with our Slack colleagues, so we'll have even more there in the future. So among those APIs here, there's a new one called the Agent API. We've released that in early March. And this API here is pretty basic. It's actually a set of requests that lets you interact with the Agent API. So I won't go through the whole documentation here, but if you want to try it out, you can basically go on this workspace here and you can create your fork. Think of the workspace here as a GitHub repository or GitHub organization, and each of these collections are actually GitHub repositories that you can fork, you can clone, and all of these requests here are request templates that you can use. So whenever you're on one of these requests or APIs, I should say API collections, like the Agent API, you can run a fork and create your own copy. I already did this in my own private workspace, my Agentforce demo workspace. So here I have my fork, and I've actually configured all of my variables. There's a set of variables you need to configure. I will show you how to do that later on, but first I want to start with a demo of the API, and then I'll show you how you can set it up. So every time you need to work with the Agent API, first you need to authenticate. So hopefully you've set up already your variables, and variables we'll see require a connected app, they require an agent ID and a domain name for you'll be interacting with. Then you get to retrieve a new access token. Here I got an access token that I can use. Once I've authenticated, everything I need to do is to start with a new session. So think of it as opening a new chat with the agent, although it can be again in a headless mode, so you don't even have a user interface. That's the first request you need to send, starting a new session or a conversation. Now, all of this, I have a number of things here in this first request that are pre-configured. One of them is the endpoint for my org. So this is a variable that connects to one of my orgs. I have a time zone, I can work with multiple time zones and languages. And I have here a first variable. This is one of the standard variables. That's the language of my user. I could be tweaking this if I were to work with a multi-language context. I can also specify my own custom variables when dealing with the agent. And if you've been using Agent Builder, you can see that you can apply a bit of logic in the Agent Builder itself to control the flow of the conversation. And then there are two other things here which control the way the agent will respond. We have enabled streaming mode and we have enabled chunking mode. So I'll get back to that when we run our first prompt, but let me first start a conversation. So I'll just click send here. When I get back from Agentforce, here's a bunch of things. And in fact, there's a lot of verbose response. What's really important here is that we get a session ID. Now, the session ID in the context of Postman is something we'll save and we'll be able to reuse it in the next requests. If you are writing your own client, you will need to keep track of this variable so that you can reuse it later on. Now, moving on to the next request, we have opened a conversation and we have obtained a session ID. We can either run a synchronous message or synchronous prompt, or we can run a streaming prompt. So I'll show you the first one, running a synchronous prompt, and I'll just say something very simple. I'm going to write a prompt here. I'll ask, how can you assist me today? And I'll send that as a prompt. So the first option here, running a synchronous message, means that this is going to be a blocking HTTP request. So this can last for a couple of seconds. Actually, this time it was pretty fast, 3 seconds only, but it can take longer. Obviously, I haven't really run any actions there. I got the first response from the agent. Here it's very generic. There's nothing really that it will do there, but that's the first way to run a prompt. This is great for building the type of requests that are completely offline, I mean, in headless modes. This is not what you would be using if you are using a user interface, because if you were using a user interface, you would need some kind of dynamic feedback in the user interface. And you don't want to be running a long running HTTP query. So let me show you the second mode, which is the streaming mode. In the streaming mode, I already prepared a prompt. This time it will run some actions on Agentforce, so it should be a bit longer to run. You'll see that it also needs the session ID that we retrieved earlier. And let me just run it. So the first request that we send here is a regular HTTP request. However, as you can see here, it's now being upgraded and it's now moving to a streaming event. This is running using server-sent events. Server-sent events are a standard for receiving a response in multiple chunks, and this can last for a very long time. Here, it's still pretty fast. It lasted about 18 seconds. And what's really cool about this kind of mode here is that you'll get bits of the response without waiting for the full 18 seconds. Now let's take a look at how the response is being assembled. The first thing I did was to send the prompt, and that's where we got the first connected event. Then we got some progress indicator events. Now these correspond to the custom loading messages that we have set up on our agent actions. This prompt that I ask here, get me some AI courses that last for 2 hours, will hit an org in which I've prepared a fictitious online learning agents. Let me actually remove my webcam out of the way because you can't see it very well. I just realized this. So I'll just hide my webcam for now. Hold on. Sorry, I'm back. I just realized that I did something stupid. All right, I should be back. You can see. All right, my bad. Okay, let me resume. I was showing you the text chunks. Okay, sorry for the mess. This cut my microphone when I hit my webcam. So let me just quickly go back. What I was showing is that we get multiple progress indicators. Each of these progress indicators map to one of my message for the actions that I'm running. I'm running a first action to connect to my GitHub profile, running a second action to connect to my LinkedIn profile, and etc. etc. So each of these actions that are being run by my agent are causing an agent to send a progress indicator. Once the actions are complete, we'll move on to the second phase, which is called chunking. And chunking allows me to break down my answer, my agent answer, into multiple bits. So here, for example, I have the first text part of my agent action, of my agent response, sorry. And you can see that it's being cut here. Oops, at the end it's being cut. So this is not the full response. So what I need to do is to dynamically populate my user interface with the next text chunk. So the sentence continues here, and then there's another bit of a sentence there, etc., etc. So all of these add up together until you get all the text chunks. At the end, you'll get an informed message. So the informed message is the entirety of the agent response. So you get the first bit and the rest with all the bits of the answers, all the course recommendations with the details. So that's the part that is not chunked. That's the full response. And at the end, when the agent is completely done processing your prompt, it will issue an end of turn message, which contains a signal to say that it's done processing. You can move on to the next prompt. That's how you can run an agent prompt using the Agent API. Now, you can fire more than one prompt in the same conversation. So here we got some recommendations. We can ask another prompt after that. And as long as we keep the same session ID, we're in the same conversation. It means that we're actually working on the same context. So if I get a first response, I can iterate. I can ask for other questions. I can ask the agent to clarify. I can ask the agent to do other things as long as I'm sharing the session ID. Obviously, the session ID can be used for up to a certain time. It will expire after some point, but the timeout for this is very long. And if we're a good citizen, once we're done getting our prompt response and we're done interacting with our agent, we can close the session by issuing an end session message, and this will close down the conversation. After that, we no longer have a session ID. It's actually cleared in Postman, and we can move on to something else. All right, so I'll just take a minute just to look at the messages, see if there were any other questions. I know I messed up with the audio. Just want to make sure that I didn't go over some questions. I saw a flurry of messages when I realized that my audio was cut. Sorry about that again. So yeah, hello everybody for the ones who joined late. That was the first question already. If we have a custom website, not Experience Cloud, and we want to embed the agent inside, would that be through the Meow API? So yes and no. You can use Meow. You can use Meow for two things. You can use the Meow API, but you can also use Meow in terms of custom integration. There is also a set of user interface that is already provided within Meow. The Agent API doesn't come with a user interface, so you would have to create your own user interface. So that's a bit different. There's a service deployment for custom website, and there is the ability to do something completely custom with the Agent API. Now, I think. So yeah, the other question was, how can I get the Agent API collection? Well, the answer is simple. You can just go on the Postman developers, Salesforce developers workspace, and you can fork it from there. I see someone already pasted the API link, so that's perfect. Thank you. Scrolling down very quickly, making sure that I need to follow up. So yes, to use the Agent API, I'm getting to this point. You need to have a service agent. The Agent API and the Meow API only work with the service agents at the moment. They do not work with the regular employee agent or with the default agent. That is a known limitation, and I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. For now, it's dedicated to integrations. There may be other features that you connect with agents, employee agents later on, but for now, it's only working with the service agents. So let me now show you the org and show a bit how this is configured. So we saw how to use the API with Postman. Now let me show you my org, what we have. So again, I built a little scenario in which we're an online learning company, and we are able to use the API to expose some of our services outside. But first, before going to the integration, I want to show you what we have configured in terms of agent experience. So we have a number of agents in this website, and the agent we're going to be using is our course recommender agent. It is a service agent. I stress out this fact because, again, it's a mandatory thing for using the Agent API. And we've configured this agent with an API integration. So how do we do that? There are two steps to enable the API for this agent. And the first step will be to create a connected app. So I will show you that. And once you create the connected app, you can go into this connections tab and add it as a connection. So this here, the Agent API integration here that you see here as an API connection is in fact a connected app. And that's something you'll need to set up. So let me go now in the connected app. I'm going to go in App Manager, and we'll be taking a look at the settings for this integration. So setting up this Agent API integration is just a connected app. So I'm going to open it. You'll see that it's just an OAuth connected app, and it has just a couple of things which are very important, and I'm going to zoom in a bit on this in particular. It has a couple of special scopes. It requires the API scope, but it also requires the chatbot API and the SF API scopes. These two scopes are the ones that are required. They're really unique for the Agent API. And these are the ones that you need to set up, right? So once you've done this, you've created your OAuth connected app, and you've set up this to work with the client credential mode. You can then add the connected app to your agent, like we did, using the settings and the connections tab there. Now I set it, and then you can start using the agent. So let me show you what we did. The prompt we ran just a couple of seconds ago is how we use it. We have a number of topics here, and the one I'm going to be showing today for the demo is the course recommender topic. It has a number of actions that it's using, and it's the one that helps us find course recommendations. So I can ask it, can you suggest some AI courses that last 2 hours. I'm taking exactly the same prompt that I ran through the agent API. And what we're seeing right now in the experience in the chat here is exactly the same experience. You can see already here that there are some custom loading messages. These are defined at the action level. And as we go, we're going to have dynamic loading messages that are being provided. And here, I don't know if you can see that in the streaming, but you can see that the response of the agent didn't pop up in one go. It was automatically filled line by line almost. That's because it was chunking. That's how we got the different bits in a dynamic format. I see that there's a question in the chat. Someone asked if they can have the entire recording. Yes, this session is being recorded. And also, if you missed it, there's also a related talk that is being hosted on our Salesforce YouTube channel and Salesforce Plus about building headless agents. That was a TDX session that was recorded. So going back to this preview here, what you see is what you saw was streaming. You can see those dynamic loading messages and chunking because the agent response was populated dynamically. And you can see here, these are the different actions that will run in the background. So each of these actions have their own custom loading messages again. So that's the experience within the platform. Let's now take a look at how this works, how this translates in terms of integration, how this works in a third-party website. So for the same use case, I've built this custom website. It's actually hosted on Heroku, and it has the API client that lets me connect and interact with the agent. And so there's a course catalog on this online learning website, and you can see there are a number of courses there. And there is a search here which lets me ask things to my agent. And I can write my custom prompt here. I've already pre-filled it to save a bit of time. And I can fire the prompt request by just clicking this button. So here, this actually runs the agent API behind the scenes. You'll see those same custom loading messages with the streaming. And then we won't see it, but there's chunking also that takes place, and we'll get the same prompt response from the agent. In a couple of seconds, we should be seeing it. And there we go. This is the prompt, the agent response that has been embedded directly within our third-party website. I see some questions that landed while I was doing this. The question is, okay, the name of the YouTube channel, that's the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel. And what are the permissions enabled at the agent user level? So this is a service agent user. It doesn't have any specific permissions for the API to work. It will just be using the permissions configured at the profile level for the service agent. But there's nothing specific to the API. The permissions are more specific to the actions that my CourseMake Commander agent can use to interact with the different actions. The only thing we need to do is to enable the API for our agent. One thing I did not show when I was in Postman is that the agent API needs to talk to my agent. So I will show it now. Among the different variables here, there is my agent ID here, which is required to talk to a specific agent. I could be sending multiple API requests to different agents. This is part of what is being sent. For example, when we start a session and then when we send messages, there is an agent ID here, which is provided, and this is mapping to the ID of my agents here. You can see if I select my agent, this is the same ID that we have here. This is my service agent ID. That's the one we're using. And it's the same thing when using the custom website here. We have our client that is talking to our service agents. So let me show you now how I built this thing. That's not something I've been doing in the past in my session at TDX, but I want to show you how this is built. To build this custom website, I've built a Node.js application running on Heroku, but I've also built a client, and I'm sharing it with everybody here. It's a generic and reusable client that you can use to interact with the agent API. So you just have to install it as a node dependency. You have to set up these couple of things: the instance URL for your Salesforce org, your client ID and client secret for your connected app, and the agent ID for your for your service agent, and then you can start using it. So I can show you the sample here, but maybe let's go directly even to the source code of my demo. I'm going to show you that directly within the app. This product here is not something I've shared online yet. I will need probably to clean it up, but it's the example we saw in the online learning website. And so there's a bit of JavaScript here that works with the agent. Sorry, where is it? With the agent client. Let me get to you directly the part that is relevant for us. Actually, no, I'm going to show you the server part, which I think is even more interesting. There we go. So, what do we need to do to work with the agent with the agent API client? We first need obviously to import it, pass in the configuration. Again, these are the 4 things you need to interact with it. And then I need to call first authenticate. That's sending the authentication request using OAuth. It's using the connected app settings to authenticate and get an access token. Once we have authenticated, we create a session. Just like we did in Postman, we obtain a session ID. And then we can use this a session ID to get some events back. So here I'm using an example with the streaming message. So this is actually creating a server sent event stream. I'll call it event source, which lets me get some messages. I'm passing on the session ID and the custom prompt sent by the user. So for example, can you suggest some AI courses that we recommend? And then here we have an event handler that will parse the different responses from the agent and will output them in the logs and also show them in the user interface. At the end, we close the session and that's it. Now, each time we get a response, we're able to handle them and to display them. And if I go further down, we'll see the rest is just regular plumbing just to create an app. I also have an example of a synchronous prompt there, and that's more for I would say, headless use case. So if I were to go back to my app, there is this other thing I want to show you. In the app, when you're looking at this, there's also another way to do it. So here what we saw was pretty much a textual interaction with an agent. That's kind of similar to using a prompt, but you can also have some more headless interaction. So here, for example, if I click on one of these hearts, I'll start one of these courses. This will actually start also another prompt to ask the agent about favorite courses. And if I wait long enough, yes, here I have this little tile here, which comes back with an agent suggestion for similar courses. That's another way of running a prompt with a user action. Obviously, you can also do things in a very, very different way. You can have, for example, a cron that will run in the background that will run prompts. You can also work with multi-agent experiences. You can have a master agent that talks to sub-agents on other platforms, and that's something I want to show you next. You can distribute the work between agents from one platform to another. Right, let me take just a second to check on questions. Do these calls go against platform API limits? So not exactly. There is something different. These are not the platform limits, and you look at the the um, the API documentation for this. These are actually tokens. There are some tokens that are available as part of Agentforce. So the more prompts you run, the more tokens you'll consume, and that's how you're billed at the moment. There might be some changes coming to the pricing model, but that's for now the way it works. You're consuming tokens, and this is all documented in the API collection documentation and the API documentation. Sorry. Let's see. So this project, yes, this project is not shared just yet. What is being shared at the moment for now is only the Node.js client that I just show you in GitHub. I will work on cleaning up this library and making sure it's available, but it's a bit tricky to set up. There are a couple of things to deploy. So this website here is not just shared right now, but the client, reusable client, is shared. All right. Any other questions? All right. let me move on. I'll post the URL in the chat. Yeah, I see some people are asking about the URL. Do I still have it handy? Let's see. I just closed it. So let me just reopen it. I'll just bring back the agent API no client. I'll pass it on here. And let me drop this in the chat for everyone to see. If I can figure out where my chat is. There we go. Here and in YouTube as well. There we go. That's the link to the client API on GitHub. All right. So that's one thing I want to share today with you. And the other thing I want to share is that this API allows, on top of building headless agents, it also allows you to build multi-agent experiences. And that's something very experimental, very new, but it's I'd say pretty groundbreaking. And I want to take a minute to show you another demo. So we're going to go away from this use case of having online learning courses, and let me just close a few tabs and switch to this other demo. So let me go to another. So what I have now in the next demo is a multi-agent experience. Here, I'm connecting to a first org, which is going to be my slave org, and it's one of the orgs that is going to be serving my request. And I've configured an agent here, which will help us work with a new use case, which is a loan application service. And here we have one of the specialized agents that will help us do the loan application. This is a loan application validator. So it has a couple of actions that are dealing with loan applications, and you can see it's already configured to use an API with our Agentforce integration. Agentforce API integration. So this one is not something we're going to be using directly. What we'll be doing is actually using a master org. And let me just give me a second. I will just get back to this org. There we go. I'm going to connect to another org, which is our master org. So let me connect. This master org is the one that we'll use. Forget the branding. I haven't really rebranded it. That's the one that will have an employee agent that will talk to multiple orgs and multiple agents. So not only does it talk to another org, this other org here, it will also talk to a Mistral agent, but that's not something we'll talk more of today. I just want to show you the multi-agent integration for Agentforce. So here, that's going to be the agent we're going to be working with. And let's go inside this agent. I want to show you how it works. So this is our master topic, or master org with the main agent. And this one is the one that will distribute the work among multiple other agents. So it has a number of actions. It has an action that lets it call a Mistral AI agent, but it also has another action here that lets it talk to another Agentforce agent on another Salesforce org. And this one here is an Apex action that uses an Apex client to work with the agent API to call another agent on another Salesforce org. So let me just show you a quick example. I'll ask it validates loan application 01234. I think that's the one. Let me check very quickly. I have a loan application that is configured as a record in here. I want to make sure that I'm hitting the right record. So I've prepared 01234. So this loan application record has a lot of information about a loan applicant. They've provided their personal details, their employment information, financial status, etc. And we're going to be using a multi-agent system to validate this loan application. And we have multiple agents who are going to be doing the credit scoring, the risk analysis, and all of that. And so in Agentforce Builder, I'm going to ask my master agent to do the verification. And what the master agent will do is that it will distribute the work to the sub agents. Aha. So I guess I didn't. Oh yeah, I need to change that. Let me try again. I did not have the right name, so that's the name is LA-01234. So let's try again with the right loan application record. This time, the first action will be to retrieve the loan application record, and then it will work with the other actions to distribute the work across the different agents. Let's see, it's taking a bit of time right now, and let's see how this works. Yes, so we already got the response, and let's take a look at how it worked. First, we retrieve the loan application record. That's the record I just showed you earlier. We then passed the loan application details to our Mistral AI agent. The agent was called for two things, for the risk analysis and for the credit scoring. And each time it got back the enriched information with the agent loan application. And then finally, we sent a message to the slave agent on the other Salesforce org, validate loan application with the application details, and we got back the response. And in the end, we have approved our loan application. So we used two agents to do that, a Mistral AI agent and another Agentforce agent on a secondary org. So let's take a look now how this works. To do that, we used a number of actions, and I want to show you just quickly the code for the Agentforce integration in Apex. This is something also that I'll be sharing later on GitHub. It's not ready just yet, but I want to show it to you. All right, let me show you that. Where is it? Yes, I'll show you here. I need to clean the code up a bit, but I've built a small client, and it's doing exactly what you would be doing with it's doing exactly the same thing that you would be doing with Postman. First, establishing an agent, getting an access token using OAuth authentication. Then starting an agent session by sending the post request with the session ID and retrieving all this information. And finally, sending a prompt using synchronous mode. Again, another post request to the agent API and then getting the response back. So that's an agent API client built and embedded as an action. You can see that I've built a custom action that does all of this, starts the session by using the client, retrieves the session ID, send the message that is sent to my agent action as a prompt here, firing the message, and then waiting for the response, extracting the response, and getting it back. So I'll just pause for a second, go back to the questions. I see there are a number of questions that have popped up in the chat. So let me take a second to go back. All right, let's see. So I shared the URL of the GitHub repo. I will share later on the sample code for the org and for the Apex client ID. It's not ready just yet to be shared, but I will share all of this. The agent API doesn't deal with other format than text. So it's actually a very good question. So you may have seen that if you are building a custom deployment using Experience Cloud, you have the ability to pass in documents, to pass in images, for example, or PDFs in a chat box. This is not yet supported by Agentforce. We're just starting to add support for it, and it's only available through this this embedded service deployment user interface. It is not available through the agent API. The agent API can only deal with text. It's not able to deal with other formats at the moment. Obviously, as the technology evolves, we'll be able to deal with documents in other, I would say, binary formats. But for now, the agent API is text only. So multimedia is to come, but not there just yet. And same thing for voice as well. Voice is not there yet. Another question about how the orchestration is done for the multi-agent scenario. So the orchestration for the multi-agent scenario is built through the configuration of my topics. Let me show you that. So I showed you that there are multiple agents here, and in my topics configuration, I have added some instructions, and these instructions tell uh, about the different responsibilities of the different agents. So Mistral is going to be used for credit scoring. Mistral is going to be used for risk analysis, and there's a whole process that explains how we're going to dispatch the work to the different agents, how we're going to aggregate the entire response, and how the final agent, the Agentforce agent, is going to have the final say to validate the response. So it's another way to build a flow. I could build obviously a flow, but these are distributed, and these can be also called. These actions could be called separately at different times. So not just like a flow; they're more like, say, granular and can be configured separately. The context is shared across these agents because we are describing what's expected for input and output for these actions, and they expect to have the loan application with extra text. Now, what I did in this context of this demo is that I've passed unstructured information so that it has a dynamic shape. That's actually a big difference compared to writing a flow. In a flow, you would have very structured information. You would have to have a set format for the input and output. But in the context of a multi-agent experience, you no longer need that. You just need to pass text from one agent to the other. And in fact, what I did is that I passed JSON from one agent to another. And I have no definition of the JSON structure. It will vary a bit between the different calls, but the agents are smart enough to extract the right fields and take into account what they need, just what they need to pass on to the sub actions. So that's kind of a very different paradigm, I say, compared to the structured approach with a flow. So there's actually another good question in the chat. This here is tightly coupled. You've seen that my topics are actually describing the interaction between the different agents, and we are saying do this, then do that, then do that. Now, the next step, the next evolution to this, will be to use the agent-to-agent or A2A protocol. And the A2A protocol is something very new. It's been introduced by Google in April, so it's only been a bit more than a month now, and it's still work in progress. So apart from the first draft of the specification, there's no one that really implements it apart from some Gemini examples. But Salesforce and a bunch of other technical partners are a part of this initiative, and we are actively looking at enabling agent-to-agent protocol as part of Agentforce. I don't have any demo yet or any date that I can share, but this is work in progress, and you can imagine that those multi-agent experience will be even simpler to implement in the future because you may not need as many integration setup as I did here. The agent will be able to discover what the other agents are capable of doing. They'll be able to share information about the sub actions that are available, and you can imagine some sort of a negotiation running between the main agent and secondary agents. But this is beyond the scope of the Agent API. That's going one step above, really. Now, another question: does it count as one conversation for each of these separate agents? So there are actually multiple conversations going on in the scenario I shared. There's the main conversation that is being shared, started by my main agent, and there is also a sub conversation when I talk to my slave agent here, because the action here is starting a new conversation on the secondary agent. So obviously that's not something that would scale well. I think that's where we'll need to wait for the agent-to-agent protocol to maybe have only one conversation instead of multiple conversations in this context. Also, there's a bit of overhead with this kind of application because we will need to start a session each time we have an action here. So this send a message to Agentforce agent, authenticates, start a new session, sends a prompt. So that's 3-4 requests that are being chained together instead of directly having an open stream available on the secondary agent. So there are still ways to improve this. But what I want to show you here is the first, I would say, draft of a multi-agent experience. Obviously, this will get simpler and easier to configure in the future. I just want to show you what's possible today. I think that sums up what I wanted to show you today. You saw a very basic example how to call the API. The first step for you, again, should be to start experimenting with the Agent API. Go to Postman because that's really, I think, the easiest way to interact with the API. Make sure that it does work on Postman, and then you can explore building custom integrations with it. I will share some extra resources that I've assembled as part of my previous talks. Let me show you. Let me share that. Give me a second. I will share a link, and we can put it obviously in the session description so that you can have all of these useful links. In the meantime, if you have questions, don't hesitate to send me those questions in the chat. I'll take a couple of minutes to answer those questions. All right, let me share now the link. This is the link for the trail mix that contains a number of questions and a number of resources for this session. If you have missed the beginning, the session was recorded, and again, there's also the session that was recorded from TDX available on the Salesforce Developers YouTube channel. You can find by looking for headless. I think that's a very good keyword. All right, another question. How did I write the instructions for passing JSON or formatting it? That is something I did. You may have noticed that in my scenario here, I actually used a custom action to retrieve my record, my loan application record. This here is not your typical get record action that is just out of the box. I built my own here using Apex simply just because what I did is that I forced the output of my loan application action to be displayed as a JSON string. I found it way easier to pass in text from one agent to another. Again, that's really a change of paradigm. We are not passing structured data, we're passing unstructured data. So here, in fact, I'm getting all of my loan application data as a string, as a JSON string, and this is how I'm passing it also as a string to the other agent. And here, what my prompt to Mistral agent is simply credit score check for loan application. Then I paste the JSON of my loan application record. And here for the next one, I'm adding the extra bits that I got back from my previous output. So I'm chaining the different actions simply using text because it's way easier instead of having structured objects. Another question. Does this work in the ISV context? Can we package these? So yes, this is all you need to package package this is simply to package the connected app, in fact. The agent can be packaged and the connected app that is backing it can be packaged as well. So yes, you could package this in the context of an ISV. What's not clear, and I'm sorry I don't have the answer to this, is how would the Agentforce tokens be built? If you are using a packaged version of, how would we charge the conversations? That's not something I know. You would have to reach out to your ISV partners, ISV evangelists maybe to figure out how billing would work in this context of a packaged application. How is the JSON being passed between the different agent actions? It is not even a variable. It is, in fact, simply passed as the output, the variable, and a text variable that is being issued out from these prompts. So you can see if I take, for example, my Mistral action, it's going to be the same for the Agentforce action. I have text in and text out, as simple as that. And then with the topic instructions, I'm defining how to aggregate all of this from one agent to the next. We're not using a context variable for this. The context variable could be interesting if we were to provide some more prescriptive guidelines on how we could chain actions. I haven't used those context variables in this example here. You could imagine a use case of those. You could mix this with the text. That's certainly possible. but I haven't done this in my example. I just stuck with the topic instructions for this. All right, that's it for questions. I no longer have questions in the chat, so I hope you've enjoyed. It was a good use of your time. Again, I want to encourage you to look at the recording of my session. This was fast, but I think both of this codeLive and the recorded sessions are complementary. The recorded session focuses more on the theory. It will also cover the example you saw today with maybe some diagrams, which may be helpful. If I had more time, maybe I would show you those because I think they work very well together. So do take a look at the recordings. Thanks a lot, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it and you learned really new things. Stay tuned for the next one and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.